Okay, so let's start. Hi,
Yeah,
hello everyone. Um, I think we can start with today's session now. Welcome to Literary Adda's first ever Adda with an author. I am
yay.
Pratyusha,
Hi, I am Chayanika.
and we are the founders of Literary Adda. It's a book club where we read like a writer and then try to write our own stories. So today we have Swati Hegre with us. So first of all, thank you so much, Swati, for agreeing to do this. We are
Absolutely.
super excited.
I'm so excited to be the first guest on your
Yes,
literary Adda.
Yes, it's like a divine thing. The amount of
exactly.
supportiveness we have seen from you.
Thank you.
And I'm pretty sure the audience is also, very set and ready to get to know you. So tell us a bit about yourself and your debut romance book, Match
Yes.
Me If You Can.
So, hi everyone. I'm Swati Hegde. I'm an author living in Bangalore. And apart from being an author, I'm also an editor and fiction writing coach for other authors. So, if you ever need help with like your editing or, your query letter that you're going to send to an agent, hit me up. Besides that, I'm, like I said, the author of Match Me If You Can, which came out with Penguin India in India and Dell Romance in the US. Now, this is a book about, I'm going to read it out from here because I always stumble on my words if I don't. It's about a young magazine writer in Mumbai who must prove her matchmaking skills and contend with growing feelings for her close family friend. And it's a friends to lovers romance. It's very slow burn. It's very like, it's going to make you like hit your head against a wall and be like, just kiss already. And that's definitely the vibe I've wanted to imbibe into this book. And I've been told by multiple readers that that is indeed the vibe that they got. So I feel very happy about that. And it's out in bookstores everywhere in India. So if you haven't yet, you can go ahead and get your copy either from a bookstore or you can get it from Amazon or probably Flipkart. I think it's on Flipkart as well. I'm not too sure. But yeah, please get your copy. And I'm so grateful to be here at the first Adda with an author. And thank you everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you. So, the first question that hit me is that how long did it take you to write the first draft of this book?
Okay, so so I would say this version is probably the eighth or ninth draft of the book. So keeping and this obviously eighth or ninth draft got finalized, like it got sent to like copy editing,
Right.
probably like last year, September, I think, or like October. So the first draft I started writing it December 2020. Feb 2021, I finished the first draft.
Okay.
And then like multiple revisions and edits later, I sent it to agents and all of that. And then June 2022, I signed with my agent. And then
Oh,
we did like another round of edits. And then my publisher actually made me do like 3 or 4 rounds of edits, which is very agonizing, but I think it's worth it because I'm very proud of the finished result, the finished product. But yeah, so from like the date of creation to the date of publication was like almost what 2.5, no, not even
half
two and a
years.
half, 3 years
3 years.
almost. 3 years, yeah, 3 years.
So you said like there was a multiple edits that you made
Yeah.
before you sent for queries. So what was your editing and revision process like?
So the first thing I recommend any author do when they're editing, when they're done with their first draft is like just ignore it for like at least 1 week to 1 month. I say 1 week to 1 month because ideally I think authors should wait at least a month so they have that, like kind of space from the book. But I'm a very impatient person. So for me, I can't go more than 1 week without writing or working on something. So I'm like 1 week in, I'm like, okay, let's go back and start fixing this book. So for me, the editorial process before I got my, beta readers and critique partners was just after a 1 week gap of writing the book, just sit down and like read it from start to finish and like kind of make notes as I'm rereading it of like, okay, this can be fixed. This is not good, or like this is actually great. Or, just giving myself like small comments in the margin of the book. And then using those, I compile all those comments into a separate document. And then I rewrite or edit the manuscript as needed. Then after that, I start like in this process, I am telling my beta readers and critique partners, like, hey, can you guys read this book after X number of weeks and let me know your thoughts? And then so they're already like scheduled beforehand, because obviously with people being busy, you have to ask them in advance if they want to actually, if they'll be available to beta read or critique your book. And then it goes to my my critique partners, my author friends, and then I do like another round or two of edits with their feedback, and then it goes off to the agents I'm querying.
Right. That seems like a long process, but it also depends upon, on each book, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
One
yeah.
book might take a long time and the other one might not. So, when we are working on a particular book, we are also getting hit by other story ideas. So,
Yeah.
what do you do when you get those, and how to not get distracted by other story ideas and just
Uh,
stick to the current one?
So I'm the wrong person to ask this, because I'm always like thinking of or working on like multiple books at a time. So like I have this document on my laptop. It's called Books Info, okay? And it's just basically like ideas and like character names, or like blurbs, and just like random chapter snippets of like books that I want to write someday, but I haven't written yet. And that document is 150 pages long. So I have like too many ideas in my head at any given point in time. Like even right now, like I'm trying to figure out what my third romance novel will be. And I have like three ideas that I've written like a little bit of each of them. And I'm like still figuring out, okay, which one should I actually focus on? But I think for authors who are like trying to figure out what to focus on, and I think this is advice I should myself also take, is figure out what is, I think, you're most excited about. I would always say trust your gut on that, because a lot of people are like, I should write what the market wants me to write, or like I should write, this is more trendy right now. But see, the thing is, considering I wrote this book in 2021 and it came out in 2024, you cannot write to the market
Yeah.
accurately, because by the time that book even comes out, who knows, the market's completely changed.
Right.
Like if Twilight was written like 4 years later or even 3 years later, no one would have published it, because by then vampires might have gone out of style. I think,
Yeah.
it really depends. So I would say whatever you're most excited about, always work on that, because that genuine enthusiasm that you need as an author, like when you have that, that's when your book's actually going to shine, when you write it. Because if you're writing a book and you kind of hate it, or like you hate the concept, or you're like, I'm only writing this because I wanted to sell and I wanted to make money, but you don't actually love the idea, then the book is just, it's not going to be written well enough, and readers are going to be able to sense that you didn't wholeheartedly love the idea.
Yeah, I think you're, correct about this. Readers always, sense if you're not enjoying this part, readers will also point that out. This happens a
Yeah.
lot. So I think that's a brilliant advice to just focus on which project excites you at the moment. So work
Yeah.
on that. I think I'm also going to follow that from now on.
Yay.
So apart from that, you also have your own freelance editing business, right?
Yeah.
So along with your own writing projects, how do you juggle, your business and your projects?
So the one good thing I think about being self-employed is I can decide how many clients I want to take on. So I remember last year, because it was 2023, and I was like very heavily focusing on Match Me If You Can edits, and I was also working on my young adult novel, which is coming out in 2026. But last year, I was the first half of last year, I was just finishing the first, not finishing the, was I finishing the first draft? Yeah, I was finishing the first draft. And then we were doing edits, with my agent, and then I was also doing edits for my second adult romance book, which is coming out next year. So there was a lot of just author career stuff going on. So I told myself, as tempted as I was to just, take on any client who came my way, I was like, no, I'm not going to take on clients from this month to this month. And I'm just going to focus on my writing, because otherwise I knew I would get burnt out. And so that was a good thing of like me. And the thing with publishing is, because that, even if you've written the book now, it's going to come out 2 years later. So you kind of know at what phase you'll be in of the publishing process in the next 6 months or 7 months. So based on that, I can kind of like figure out my schedule and be like, okay, in these months, I won't be taking on as many clients. Like I already know my next book is coming out next Feb. So Feb 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So for that book, I know like, Jan and Feb, I'm going to be very busy. So those months, I'll probably not take on any editorial clients, or I'll try to wrap up all my work before that. But probably until then, I'm gonna be quite free. So this rest of this year, I think I'm gonna be very aggressively taking on new clients. So again, being self-employed, I think is like the ultimate blessing. It's a huge privilege. It's a huge blessing, and I'm just very glad I get to live this life, honestly.
So I guess from your, the way you explained it, I think it depends on being aware of how much work we can take,
Yeah.
and then kind of prioritize what is more important at the moment. So yeah, I think that works well. Okay, we have more people in the audience, so let me just take this moment and let them know that if you have any questions, please do drop them into the chat box and we will get to them, okay, in some time. Okay, so now diving deeper into the writing process. So now let me ask you, where do you get your ideas from? Your what is exactly your inspiration about plot or the characters or your stories?
Yeah. So it really varies because like I know for Match Me If You Can, it was, it's inspired by Jane Austen's book Emma. So the ideas were the essence of the book is from that the classic novel. So I think it was much easier coming up with this plot because I had a base than with the plot of my other books. So I'm going to use my young adult novel which is coming out in 2026 as an example here, because the book coming out next year with Dell Romance, we haven't announced it yet, so I can't reveal anything about it, even though if you Google my name, you will see information about it online, but I just personally can't talk about it apparently, because publishing is weird. So my book, my young adult debut, releasing in 2026, it's called As Long As You Loathe Me. So it's like a friends to enemies to lovers queer romance. It's a young adult romance. So that's basically about this girl who it's like Mean Girls meets Never Have I Ever. And I
Oh,
feel like I was watching this, Taylor Swift, music video, You Belong With Me, where,
okay.
there's this very nerdy girl and like she's in love with her next door neighbor.
Huh.
But he's dating and he's a jock and he's like dating the cheerleading captain. And she's like, I wish he knew that he belonged with me. And one day I was just watching that, music video and I was like, it would be so funny if like, if the dorky girl decided to like break them up so she could get the guy. But in doing so, she falls for the cheerleader. And I was like, that would be interesting. And then I was like, wait, that's a book idea. I should write that. So then I wrote it, and now it's coming out in 2026. So I get
I
my ideas
love
like,
that.
thank you. I get my ideas like very randomly. Like sometimes it's just, I'm just thinking of like all these different books or, movies that or even music videos that I've seen. And I'm like, what happens if I subvert or like, twist an element of it? Or sometimes I'll just be, walking around and I'll see someone and I'll be like, that person would make for an interesting character. And then I'd be like, could that be a book someday? Something like that. It really depends. Like I mentioned, I have that document books info which is 150 pages long. So I just randomly get ideas. A lot of it, I think, I mean, I don't think any of it is inspired by people I personally know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have not met a single man who could inspire a happy romance novel. Unfortunately, maybe someday, but as of now, no. So yeah, basically that's how I get my ideas.
So basically, you will keep writing those books
Oh yeah, yeah.
because we need them.
Oh yeah, yeah. My ideal way to die would be me in the middle of writing a manuscript at the age of like 90, and I just like die, like fall asleep and die peacefully in my sleep, like with my head in the on the laptop. And it's like an unfinished book, and then everyone around the world would be like, let's try and finish the book on our own. That would be so cool.
Oh,
Like, that's literally how I want to die.
and that's a book idea.
Actually, yeah, that's true. One of you should write it though, not me. I have too many ideas
Someone
already.
should note it down.
Yeah.
Okay, so continuing with that, about your book, Match Me If You Can, I saw a lot of interesting characters over there, and let me tell you, like Jayman, I really liked him from the very first, and I really wanted to know from how did you like, how are they so different and unique, and how did you craft them? Like there is Charu, there is Monica, and there is Damini,
Yeah.
and everybody is
Yeah.
so different from each other. It's pretty great. I can
Thank
remember
you.
each one of them.
That's such a huge compliment, honestly, Pratisha, because I feel like I don't know. I read a book and then like 10 minutes later, I forget everything about the book. So the fact that you actually remember the characters' names is like a huge, compliment to me. So I think like for me with characters, the one thing I like doing is I always make like not a character sketch exactly, but in marketing we have something called a consumer profile. So like you kind of, I think it's called so in the coaching world, we used to call it a customer avatar. So
Oh,
basically,
okay.
you kind of make up like this, what their likes and dislikes are, like what their biggest fears are, what their hobbies are, like all of that. So I made like this whole, I have like this character questionnaire that I fill out for each character. Like for the main characters, obviously, I have like a 3-page questionnaire. But for like the side characters, it's just like 3-4 lines, and it has like different things of like what are their quirks. Like when they're anxious, do they
Right.
like what do they do? Like, do they shuffle their feet or do they like scratch their nose? Like, what's their, thing that they do? So I try to kind of write those for all the characters. And obviously, when I'm actually writing the book, they have a mind of their own. Things end up changing very drastically from the outline, the avatar I made for them. But overall, I think the key to writing like different characters is just seeing them as very radically different people, because I don't think there's any person in the world who is similar to anybody else in like every way, right? So I think the most important thing when it comes to writing characters is know that they're don't think of them as characters, think of them as people. And
Yeah,
that's like the biggest thing, because I feel often a lot of authors, when they're freshly like, starting a book or writing their first book, they just see it as like, I just need to have characters. And that's why I'm writing all these random people into the book. But you have to think about like, what is this person adding to the story? Like,
exactly.
are they, and I think every character, whether they're a side character or like, I think a very important side character or a random side character, I think they all need to have some sort of like, I think they either need to help the main character on their journey or like hinder them in some way. So that's usually like one of the things I look at. Like, for example, in my book, right, Monica is like the hindrance to a lot of
Mhm.
Gia's goals. Whereas, Damini and Charu are like kind of like her, not sidekicks at work, but like her supporting cast. Like they're helping her on her journey, and they're helping her towards achieving her goal. And so I think it's important to kind of flesh out your characters, like actual motivations and what's the point of having them there, even if it's a random side character.
Right. So, like, even if we have our main characters, all the side characters should be like connected somehow.
Yeah, I mean, like, not, it doesn't have to be like they're all connected to like all of them are connected to all of
Yeah,
them,
not
but
all of them. Yeah.
because I sometimes feel like, when I'm editing a client's manuscript, sometimes I see like they'll have like some character come in on like chapter 3,
Hmm.
and then that character never comes back, but like this character in chapter 3 is like given a name, their features are explained, and like this character looks like this is how the main character knows them. Like they're given like at least 3 pages of like, on page time, but then that is not mentioned ever again, and I'm like, what happened to that character? Like I always, whenever I'm editing a book, I make a note of like every character that shows up in the book, and I'm like, to make sure that all of them have had a purpose. So yeah, like I think every character should add something to the journey of the main character. Like that's what I
Right.
really strongly believe in. Add or subtract from it, I guess.
That's a really good formula to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So, I see that your book is completely set in Mumbai. So, how did you choose your, setting?
So I actually lived in Mumbai for 7 years. I was in Mumbai for 2 years as like a toddler, and then 5 years, the first 5 years of my adult life. So like from 18 to 23, I was ages of 18 to 23, I was in Mumbai. So those are like my formative, growing up
Mm.
as an adult years. So I feel like even now, like although I haven't been back in Mumbai for over, I haven't lived in Mumbai since 2018 and I haven't visited Mumbai since last year, but I still feel like, I have such a strong sense of love and connection in my heart with Mumbai. And I just feel like it's such a alive city, like it's so alive in terms of culture and food and the people and the hustle mentality. And just there's always something going on in Mumbai at any given point in time. And so that's why I was like, for a story like this, which is so bigger than life in a way, I felt like it had to be Mumbai. Like it just had to be.
Yeah, and it kind of Mumbai came alive in your book, like I have to
Thank
say
you.
that.
Thank you.
So, tell us about, about your journey of writing romance. When did you start writing romance and how has
Yeah.
it been?
So I actually started out writing like young adult fantasy or like middle grade fantasy when I was like 12 years old. It was horrible, like it was such bad writing. But I was 12 years old in my defense. I didn't start writing or even reading romance until I think I was 15. And then I read, the first romance novel I read was this book called My One and Only by Kristen Higgins. It's about this divorced couple who kind of like are forced to take a road trip together to
Oh,
make it to their next destination, and then they fall in love along the way. It came out, I think, very probably around in the 2010s, sometime in 2010s it came out. It's a very old book. But it was, I think, the first romance novel, like actual romance novel I read, and I loved it so much. And I was like, after I finished the book, I was just sitting there thinking, I wish I could make someone feel as happy and hopeful and excited about love, as this book made me. And then I was like, maybe I'll try writing romance. So I think I was 16 when I wrote my first like young adult romance. But then obviously it took a lot of writing and rewriting and multiple ideas until I got to Match Me If You Can.
mhm.
But yeah, I think I kind of feel like I want to write romance for the rest of my life. Like if I'm given the opportunity, I would want to.
So we also have like in our book club we have a lot of romance writers,
Yeah.
and even recently I have been developing ideas about
Oh,
writing
wow.
romance. So let's see how that goes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So um let's continue about your writing process. So do you have like a daily writing routine of sorts, or do you write whenever you feel like?
I mean, I think I should have a daily writing routine, but I don't. Uh, and I feel like the reason for that is like when I'm on deadline for a project, I have a daily writing routine because I'm like, it's like I know I have to get it done and like there's more things at stake. But like for example, right now, Match Me If You Can has just released. I've submitted the final edits on my second book. It's been approved also, and like I don't have anything to do right now. I could technically be working on my book three, my adult romance book three, but my agent was like, there's no rush. So I was like, okay, there's no rush. I can just relax. So right now, I'm not actively working on any writing project, but usually when I am working, when I have a deadline for something, I try to write every day. But my thing is more like, I've noticed that like I'm not the kind of person who works well with like a word count goal every day. My thing is
Okay,
more like I'll spend like 2 hours a day, like time wise, I'll spend
time
two
over.
hours a day on writing, just focusing on the book. And I always do like writing sprints. Because I feel like if I just tell myself 2 hours and set a timer for 2 hours, I'm just gonna be like, oh my God, 2 more hours. So instead, what I do is I just be like, I'll put a timer for 15 minutes and I'll be like, for 15 minutes, I have to work on this book. That's it. And usually what happens is by the time the timer rings off, I'm like, I'm already like busy in a scene and I'm like, I just shut off the timer and then I keep writing. So I think this is a great technique for people who like struggle with, sitting down and writing for a long
Right.
time. Like just break it into smaller chunks because then that pressure kind of reduces.
And it's easier also to, like 15 minutes will be done
Yeah,
in 15 minutes. It
exactly,
will
exactly.
take 2 hours to
2 hours.
complete whatever the word count
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. True, true, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
very
So I
true.
know that you have already touched upon your publishing journey, but if you could go into more details, like when you had your manuscript ready, like how did you approach literary agents, or what was the process like finding publishers and editors?
Yeah. Match Me If You Can obviously was finished. I finished writing it in Feb 2021. And then at the time, I actually had a different agent. And then we parted ways, I think, September of 2021, because it wasn't really a good relationship. They hadn't managed to sell my book that I had signed with them at the time. They actually really hated Match Me If You Can as a book, and they were like, like I think they read like 50 pages and they were like, I'm not reading more, you have to rewrite everything and then I'll see. And it was just kind of a very heartbreaking moment for me, because I really loved, that second draft of Match Me If You Can that I had sent them. So then ultimately I parted ways with them in, I think, September 2021. And then from September 2021 onwards, I started querying Match Me If You Can. And I think I had a very good, like, number of pull requests. So I think I sent out around 130 query letters to agents across US and UK between September 2021 to June 2022. And I got, I think, 53 full requests, which is a very huge number. And the funny thing is, a lot of people ask me like, did you do any revisions on Match Me If You Can while you were querying? And the funny thing is, I didn't. Like, even if I got rejections, like a lot of them are very like subjective. I feel like a lot of authors of color always get that rejection of like, we couldn't connect to the story. So like
Oh,
I would get all these rejections of like, this everything was brilliant. This is the best book I've ever read, but I just couldn't connect to it enough to fall in love with it. So I'm regretfully going to step aside. Like I had so many rejections like that where they were like, it's not you, it's me. Like it felt like that kind of a breakup, like it's not you, it's me. And I was like, well, what do I do then? So I just never actually revised Match Me If You Can while I was querying. And then thankfully, I, signed with my agent, Rachel Beck at Liza Dawson Associates. And I think she has honestly been like my lucky charm, or like the best thing that's happened to me. Because, in the 2 years that I've been working with her, we've sold 4 books of mine to publishers. So,
wow.
yeah, so even the young adult is a 2 book deal. So I basically will have 1 book coming out each year from 2024 till 2027, which,
That is amazing.
yeah, feels like a dream come true.
Yeah, and I can't wait to read all of your books.
Thank
I've
you.
already checked As Long As You Loathe Me, and it seems great. And
Thank you.
the way just told us the story about its inception, I'm gonna be ready for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, you've already set it out, but there are 4 books coming out. So currently you're working on something, or what are your future goals regarding publishing and the upcoming
Yeah.
books?
So eventually, so like I mentioned, like 4 books. So there's Match Me If You Can. There's Untitled Adult Romance Book 2 that we might be doing a cover reveal and title reveal for in the next week. So this coming week, we're most likely going to reveal the title and do the cover reveal. So stay tuned for that on my Instagram. But I can't say anything about it as of now. It's just an adult romance and it's set in Bangalore. That's all I can say. And then there's my young adult novels, which will be coming out in 2026 and 2027. So I eventually want to get to a place in my career where I'm releasing 2 books a year, one young adult and one adult. So like that's like my, end goal. I feel like if when I get that, I feel like I'll have made it, which is again a paradox in itself, because like technically I feel like I should have felt like I've made it, because this was my dream, 2 years ago. But
Yeah.
somehow, yeah, I just the goalpost keeps shifting, I guess. I think that's every writer's problem. But yeah, my goals are, exactly that. I want to get to a place where I'm consistently publishing 2 books every year until I die. That's my goal.
So I wouldn't, call this a problem. Like people change and people should upgrade. And all of this just gives us hope to, work on our books and get
Yeah.
set going for, querying and publishing journey. So this is very inspirational,
Yeah.
and it's nice to see that somebody is making it and there's a chance for us also.
Yeah, of course there's a chance. Like, I think that's the good thing about, like, just loving writing so much is, like, even when you in the face of so much rejection, you just keep writing anyway because you love writing that much.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're done with the, half of the session questions. And let me see if we have any questions in the chat box. Okay, we have a question from Sanjana, and she's asking about any information on getting in touch with literary agents and what the process is.
Yeah. So first of all, Sanjana, that's a great question. And unfortunately, the answer is not as easy, because see, it's very easy to reach out to a literary agent, because if you just Google like literary agent India or like literary agent UK or US, you will get like a whole directory of list of multiple agents in whichever territory you're looking to get published in. But the issue is, and I feel like this is somewhat a good thing and a bad thing, is most people who are querying a literary agent will not look at the agent's guidelines. They'll just randomly send off an email, and then they'll be like, oh, it's so hard to query. But like, it is hard to query in any case. But I feel like the good thing is, because there's so many people out there who don't know how to, who don't know how to query effectively, and people who also don't know that they have to revise their book before they send it to an agent. The people who actually do those things will be in the top 10% of good quality projects that the agent will see. So my biggest tip for you is just Google this website called querytracker.com. I think it's is it .com or .org or .net? Wait, it's querytracker.net. So this is like the best database, querytracker.net, for agents in the US and UK. And even the free account is quite good. So I would recommend, if you want to get the paid version, I think it's like $20 a year or something, which is, affordable for some people, might not be affordable for you, but even the free version is really nice. So you can check that out. One thing I will tell you that a lot of people don't know about agents, especially in India, is an agent is not supposed to ask for money upfront. So like, I've seen a lot of these agents, in India, who are like saying stuff like, and I've had people reach out to me and be like, say, so this agent approached me, or this publisher approached me, and they said, like, if I pay them, they'll publish my book, or they'll guarantee that they'll get me a deal with Penguin. And that is not how an agent works. An agent is basically like, like how you don't pay a real estate, agent until they find you a house, right? Like, they just get a brokerage. The same way, the literary agent will only get what they'll get a percentage of what you earn. So like, when I got my deal, right, Rachel, my agent, didn't get, I haven't paid her anything. She gets a payment from the publisher, then the remaining, after taking her cut, the remaining amount she sends to me. So if any agent or even a publisher says, you pay me, I'll make your book a success, just run. Like, that's the biggest thing I can tell you, because I feel like a lot of people in India still don't know that if you're paying to get your book published, that's either a scam or that's self-publishing. If you want to self-publish, that's completely fine, but just know that if someone is asking you for money upfront, that is not a traditional publisher, and that is not a good agent. So, do your due diligence, and it's a very long process, but it is 100% worth it. I think a good agent is like the best thing you can ask for as a writer.
So thank you, Swati, for answering that.
Yeah,
And since we don't have any more questions at the moment, we will continue with the next part of the
yeah.
session. So I'll hand it over to Chayanika.
Yeah. Swati, it was so amazing to hear all that from you. And these are the kind of details that we look forward to know. It's almost like, what is the first girl doing? How is she studying? How is she scoring that much, but never knowing? And I'll just say that this very moment, like sitting with all of you guys, interviewing you, for me and Pratyusha, this is literally a dream come true since
Oh,
for like how many years, Pratyu? 4 years? 4 years or more? Yeah, I guess so.
I think
So,
more.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
2018, I guess.
I
That's when we
love that.
started.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we could not have imagined we would be able to do this. Like, since we were little girls, we would go to literary fests and stuff, and we would wonder what is happening. Like, it would be so much fun to be on the other side of the audience,
Yeah.
right? And doing this very thing, although it seems easy and very conversational for us, but in our hearts, we are just so very grateful and excited. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I had to thank you for that, for making this
Of
happen.
course. Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, you were the very first one to crack it for us. So, yeah, carrying on from that, since we have had so many great advices from you, we would like a little bit more.
Of
Uh,
course.
Coming to that, the very first thing that comes to mind when we write are the challenges of it. And the
Yeah.
biggest challenge of a writer, you can call it an arch nemesis, is a writer's block. There is
Yeah.
a lot of controversy, opinion around it. It's a very mystical kind of problem that we can't deal with, and some people deals with very well. Now,
Yeah.
for your success, the way you have written books and the way you are planning to carry forward your writing career, I can say that you have dealt with it very nicely, very professionally. So,
I
your
mean,
two cents on it.
I guess, I mean, I feel like writer, I know a lot of authors, or even writing coaches or editors will say stuff like, oh, writer's block doesn't exist. To them, I say, have you not been a writer ever? Like, because it's very obvious that writer's block exists. I feel like what a lot of people don't know is that writer's block isn't always like a skill issue. It's almost always like a mindset issue, like almost always. But yeah, like I feel like with writer's block, the main thing is figuring out like what is the source of that writer's block. Because I know like sometimes for me, if I'm working on a book and I just don't feel like writing it, or I'm just like, yeah, I just can't work on this book. I don't know what's going on. I really have to like introspect and figure out, okay, am I not interested in writing this book because the writing idea, like the idea is like something I'm not gelling with? Or is it like a fear of rejection, or a fear of like, if I finish this book then I'll have to query it, or I finish this book I'll have to send it to my agent, there's a possibility she could hate it. What if she drops me if she hates it? Like it's very funny when I say it out loud like this, but like that's how the subconscious mind works. Is like, if any of you have seen that movie Inside Out, the second one, Inside Out 2, the way anxiety is portrayed in that movie, of like just trying to look at the worst case scenario like 10 years down the line and being like, we have to figure out a solution for that very unlikely situation right now. That's what happens for a lot of writers when it comes to writer's block, is that you may be procrastinating because you just don't like the idea that you're working on, and you feel like maybe there's a plot hole and that you need to fix that. That's a skill issue, but in most cases it's usually something like you're afraid of what happens when you're done with this scene. I'll have to write the next scene. Once you're done with this book, I'll have to revise the book, and revising sounds so horrible. Oh my God. Once you're done revising, oh my God, I have to query an agent, and it took Swati 5 years to sign with her agent. What if it takes me 10 years, or what if it takes me 5 minutes to sign with an agent and then my book never sells to a publisher? Like, there's all these things that subconsciously are, huge fears of ours. And I think unless we really kind of figure out what is at the core of that writer's block, that problem will keep coming back. Like for me, I know that my writer's block is almost always because I'm writing something that I don't want to really write at the moment, and I'm just like kind of pushing myself. So for me, the biggest writer's block hack has been like, if I'm just working on a new book idea, and I'm like stuck on chapter 3, and because it's usually because either chapter 4 is a very difficult chapter to write, or it's just a chapter that I don't really want to write. So for me, a hack to kind of overcome that writer's block is I'll just write chapter 5, and I'll be like, I'll come back to chapter 4 when I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
yeah, but I know like earlier in, many years ago, writer's block for me used to be the thing about, if I finish writing this book, what then?
Yeah.
Will I be able to navigate, sending it to an agent? Will I be able to navigate revising it? That used to be my issue earlier. I think now that I have an agent and I have a book
Yeah.
deal, those fears aren't as present anymore. But for me now,
Yeah.
it's more so just like, how will I be able to write this scene? Will I be able to write it well? So in situations like that, I just like, I won't write the scene now. I'll write it later. That's future Swati's problem. I'll write chapter 5 instead. And I honestly feel like that works very well for me. I know a lot of people cannot jump around like that in their manuscripts. But if you ask me how to jump around in your manuscript, I'll say just do it. There's no strategy. You're like, I'll come back to it later. It's like, when you're in an exam and you're like, you don't know the answer to question
Exactly.
5. You're like, I'll write question 5 later, I'll leave some space for
Yeah.
it and I'll come back to it. You just kind of have to develop that mindset and do that, because that has really fixed a lot of writer's block issues for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah.
Adding to that, there is another problem that we face a lot, and me and Pratyusha have discussed a lot in many different projects, not just related to writing. There is imposter syndrome. I think
Yeah.
writer's block is somewhat related to this imposter syndrome as well. It
Yeah,
causes the
yeah.
writer's block in some way.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
have you felt this way, or have you dealt with anyone else who felt this way and you help them out? How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you solve
I feel like, going back to Inside Out, like I feel like if there's
it?
one emotion in my head that is not there in Riley's head, it's imposter syndrome. Like I think that's definitely like this, one emotion or like one character in my head that's always kind of like, on my, like breathing down like Joy's shoulder and being like, are you really sure you deserve this success? Or like, are you really sure you can write, your third romance novel and actually get it published? I feel like I've really noticed this, that the people who don't have imposter syndrome are the ones who should have imposter syndrome. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but I really feel like a lot of people who don't have any imposter syndrome, like they're just very like overconfident for no reason, I think. The ones who shouldn't have imposter syndrome are the ones who have it. It's a very weird paradox. But I think that's just, the way to deal with imposter syndrome is just be like, kind of like dealing with a screaming child, I guess. Now, I don't have children, so this is a very theoretical answer, but like when a child is screaming, you don't try to make the child go away, right? You're just like, how do I calm this child down for now, knowing the child will probably scream again in some time. So I think for a while you just kind of have to have that approach of like, I'm never getting rid of imposter syndrome, because I think you can't. I really don't think you can. It's the same way you can't get rid of anxiety. And in some ways, maybe it is, helpful sometimes when maybe you're being too cocky or overconfident. Imposter syndrome will kind of bring you down a notch. And that's also important. So just figuring out like what works for you in those moments of imposter syndrome. Like for me, I have this document on my Google Drive, which is just called what's it called? Wait, I'm actually gonna check what it's called. I haven't opened
Please
it in a
do.
while. Yeah. It's called author hype file. So basically
Oh,
every compliment that anyone has ever given me and with respect to my writing, like my editor has given me, my agent has given me, other agents or editors have given me while rejecting my book. I just copy paste like the positive compliment part,
wow.
ignore the unfortunately's, and I
Oh,
just
wow.
paste that into a document. And on the days when I feel like, that voice is like, you don't belong here, or like, who are you to think you'll be a best-selling author? I just open that document and I read through all the compliments. And that kind of pacifies, the crying child that is imposter syndrome, at least for like a few
For a
hours
while.
or a few days or a few months. And I think honestly, that's all you can really do, because as humans, we have all these complex emotions and fears, and we can't really make any of them go away, because then we
Yeah.
wouldn't be human, right? We'd just be some perfect person, and that's not fun.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're perfect, like you would lack stories, right? Stories
Yeah,
come from
exactly.
imperfections and experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, given that we face as writers, we face so many challenges, psychological, skill issues,
Yeah.
whatever it is, we have seen that some people talks about writers like lock yourself up and write this, finish this. There's a lot of movies out there that promotes this kind of
Yeah.
attitude. Do you think that the writer should be alone in a corner typewriting, or like typing on their computer or something, or should they have a community to mingle with, to share their ideas with, so that they can grow
Yeah.
ideas and inspirations of others?
I mean, I think as an introvert, I'm saying this, I think community is very important, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. I think introverts, we have our own type of community. You know, our communities won't be found at the club, at 2 a.m. dancing to, some Punjabi music. Our community will be like, in a small cafe, or like, somewhere where it's quiet and we can just have deep conversations. And I think that's very true for writers as well. Whether it's a virtual writing community, or it's an actual writers group that you meet up with in person. I think, writing is one of those things where if you just write in like a solitary confinement, how do you even know? Like, how do you have the experiences? How do you have the richness that is required in life of, of connections and talking to people? How will you have that? And that's so important to be able to write, especially fiction. So I would say, like, no matter, where you are in the world, like if you're in a random, village in Tamil Nadu, and you're like, I don't have any writer friends here, go online. If you have the internet, you literally have everything. Like, that's what I truly believe. Like, there's so many, writing groups that are online, or even if you go on social media and you go to like hashtag writing community, the hashtag, you can find so many authors. Or like if you check out like the hashtag aspiring author, hashtag on Instagram, you'll find so many people from around the world who are working on their first book or wanting to work on their first book. I think community is something that every human being, regardless of whether they're an author or not, they need it. And as an author, we especially need it because, dude, like, writing and publishing is just such a frustrating field. It's so, like, it'll make you feel like, am I the only one going through this? And I think it's important to have a community to tell you, no, we're all going through it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. And that's
Yeah.
very essential. So community always, like, build a community. Even if you haven't written the first chapter of your first book, find a community already. Like, it's gonna be what's, you're gonna kind of fall back on for support on those imposter syndrome days or those writer's block days.
Yeah. So thank you for saying that. It just
Yeah.
makes us feel better about LA. And along with that, carrying forward the point about community and everything. So the moment we build a community, we obviously, besides inspirations and support, we also have to accept criticism. It's a
Yeah.
huge deal for a writer to accept criticism, to be able to ignore the criticism that are not very constructive. Uh, as a, like, even for myself, when I was starting out, right now I can manage a lot, but when I was starting, I was very confused. Like, which one should I take to my heart, which would help me
Yeah.
develop, and which would just crush me? And it's very difficult to choose, pick and choose from. So, how should we present ourselves? Like, should we think about which work to put out for criticism, or like, should we pick people to take criticism from? Is there a formula to it, or is just how our luck works?
I think there's no formula to anything in life except maybe in maths. I don't know. But I would say, like, if you're getting like a critique partner or a beta reader, what a lot of people make this mistake of, like, they just go on Instagram and they're like looking for beta readers. And they'll get these random people who are just like, who just want to read a free book and who don't
Yeah.
have any knowledge of writing or the genre that, they're supposed to be beta reading. They're not like, they don't have that editorial skill needed or even the writing skill needed to critique another author's unpublished work. I feel like, anyone can review a book, of course, because that's very subjective. But I think when it comes to beta reading and critiquing a book, you have to have both, the subjective opinion of, like, is this book working for me? But also the objective opinion of, is this book working for the publishing market? And to do that, I think what you have to kind of look at is whoever you're getting to beta read or critique your book, whether they're a fellow author or, like, an editor who's maybe, helping you for free, or maybe you're paying them, whatever it is. Figure out, do they have experience reading in this genre, writing in this genre, or editing in this genre? Like, at least one of those three has to be there, preferably two or more. The other thing is this person someone who you'd actually, like, you respect, like, you feel like, if they tell you something that, this needs work, would you be like, hey, who's this to tell me? Or would you be like, that actually might make sense? Now, of course, you might probably think, who's this person to tell me in any case? Because we, as writers, we do have an ego. But at the end of the day, like, for example, my critique partners, when I was, querying Match Me If You Can, they were all fellow authors. And, authors I respected, authors whose books I had also read. We were doing, like, trading each other's books and reading. And I was like, I know this person writes in my genre. I know I like their writing, and I can see that they have what it takes to be in publishing and be a published author themselves. So I immediately valued their critique more. If you just get some random, Rahul from some random corner of the internet who's only read, like, Stephen King, and then he's giving you feedback on like your romance novel, and he's like,
Yeah.
this is too, like, this is unrealistic. Like he says something like that, because that's the common idea, right? That romance novels are unrealistic, which I don't think is true, but anyway. So you really have to like kind of gauge who you should be getting critique from. Don't accept it from any random,
Yeah.
Tom, Dick, or Harry, because I think that is only going to hurt your self-esteem.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is, I think it's a common thing that, a lot of people say in self-help circles as well. Like if you wouldn't want to be in their shoes, don't necessarily take their advice. So I think that's very important thing to kind of remember is, that you might not always get feedback from someone who's higher up than you in the publishing hierarchy, but you want to at least get it from someone who's, at some sort of expertise or at a similar level as you, at the very least. Like if you've written one book and, it's a fantasy novel and you're trying to get feedback on it, don't go to some guy who's written a self-help book, or don't go to, some person who's written a cookbook and expect them to give you perfect feedback that's gonna, make your book publishing worthy. And the other thing is, this is a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes you will get feedback that you don't agree with, but that might be necessary for your book. Like with Match Me If You Can, I told you this is an eighth or ninth draft, right? And my publisher made me revise it, like literally, like write the book, rewrite and edit the book heavily thrice almost. And there were many times where I was like, dude, I don't want to do that. I don't care if this is a publisher telling me, I don't want to do this. But then I kind of had to swallow my pride and be like, okay, these people know the market better than me. They've also understood the core of my story and they're helping me make it better. Do I really want to let my pride get in the way? Or do I want to at least give it a shot and see things from their perspective and see if maybe they're right? And honestly, my publisher was right, because, the third draft that I signed with my, on with my agent versus this draft, like this is 20 times stronger as a book. And I think I would probably be embarrassed if that third or fourth draft had gotten published instead. So sometimes you will get feedback that you don't agree with. And in times like that, you just have to figure out, am I coming from a place of ego and pride, or am I actually coming from a place of editorial vision? And sometimes it can be hard to kind of distinguish between that. But again, it's a gut feeling at the end of the day, I think. And you have to kind of figure out what that voice sounds like for you.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much for all your advices. But any other advice on the top of your head that we have not discussed already, or we forgot to ask you that you want to share?
I think the main thing is, that I think it's about rejection, is that it's common at every stage of publishing. Like when I was, trying to get an agent, I had this thing in my head of like, once I get an agent, my life will be perfect. I'll be the happiest person. And I got an agent, and then I was like, oh, wait, I still have to get a book deal. And then there were so many rejections from publishers then. And then I was like, once I get a publisher, my life will be set. Then I got a publisher, I got multiple book deals. But then, still you have these moments where you deal with some sort of rejection, which is like you get a 1-star review on Goodreads, or you get sometimes a 3-star review feels even worse. Because that they actually have some sense in them. Because a 1-star review, you can be like, hey, this is not my reader. This is not the right person to have read this book. But a 3-star review is like, okay, they had some valid criticism and now you feel bad about yourself. So the main thing is like detach your self-worth and your self-identity from your book's rejections. I think that's the main thing. I remember, like, I think it was last week, I got a very mean 1-star review on Goodreads. And I think I hadn't been checking my reviews for some 2 months. And then finally I was like, let me just check once. I just want to see what's going on. And then the first review, I think I saw, it was one of the most recent reviews, was a 1-star review. And then this person had gone and commented on 5-star reviews saying, how could you like this book? Like they did that with 2 or 3 reviews. And I was like, oh my God, I have a hater. This person hates my book so much that they actually are trying to figure out how other people could have possibly liked it. And then I went into this whole spiral, okay. And then I was talking to my therapist and I was like crying to her about it. And she was like, okay, so how many 1-star reviews do you have, like as a percentage? And I was like, 2% of the reviews are 1-star reviews. And she was like, okay. And how many like 4-star or 5-star reviews do you have? And I was like, probably like 40% of, 50% of them are 4 or 5 star. And she was like, so why are you letting the 2%, kind of be valued more than the 50% of positive reviews? And then she was like, she knew why it was happening, because as humans, we are conditioned to look at the negative more, because that's how, evolutionary reasons, Kele, that's how our brain works. But the thing is, you have to kind of unlearn that. You have to remind yourself that, if you get 5-star reviews and 1-star review, you need to stop thinking about that 1-star review. And I'm saying this from experience, because I'm always thinking about that 1-star review and not those 55-star reviews that I have. It's always in this horrible spiral of the focusing on the negative, and that's something I'm still trying to unlearn. So that would be my biggest tip for anyone who's hoping to get published, is build that habit early on of focusing more on the positive, focusing more on everything you've accomplished, because the person you were 1 year ago would be like, wow, I can't believe you actually finished writing a book, or I can't believe you actually finished writing a chapter of your book, or you actually published a book. So instead of thinking of like, this one reader didn't like my book, or this one agent rejected my book, think about how past you would have felt of like, I'm so like, they would have been so proud of you right now. So I think focusing on that and motivating yourself to keep making past you proud is way more important than trying to make some arbitrary reader feel like they like your book more. I think that's the main thing. So yeah, like focus on your accomplishments and your positive achievements more than some arbitrary review from some person who's not even thinking about your book anymore.
That's a great advice. Like, we needed a reminder of that. We
Yeah.
keep forgetting. Like,
I also need a reminder of that. So I'm glad I
we should
said it.
make it a whole session, support session, that
Oh
like
yeah.
remind it. We need
For
to,
sure.
we need to keep up. So
Yeah.
I think we have come to the very last set of today's event. But
Yeah.
before that, we already had another question from the
Yeah.
audience. It was like a pre-planned question. I will
Okay.
just let me check
Yes. Go
the
ahead.
mailbox and I will get back. Give me 1 second.
Sure. Go ahead.
Meanwhile, I'll just add one thing.
Yeah.
When you were telling that we introverts, we don't have our communities in the club at 2 a.m. Our
Mhm.
kind of communities are here on a Sunday evening,
Yeah,
gathered
Tea
to
exactly.
time.
talk about books.
Exactly. Yeah.
Doing the tea time over here. Mm, Okay. Yeah. So it's about it could be a personal question, but we would like give you full freedom to not
Yeah.
get into too much details of it if you don't want to.
Sure.
So finances has been a very big deal. Like you said,
Yeah.
there are many people who would cheat you into believing that you need to pay agents. Sometimes even publishing house. I used to
Yeah.
work for a publishing house that took money for publishing. I mean, it is a self-publishing thing, but
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, they portray it as a package or something. So
Yeah.
finance has been a very dicey thing of late in a publishing sector, and many people are afraid that I am not capable enough to support my book journey. So they step back, or they cannot
Yeah.
juggle supporting their life, not just lifestyle, their life, and
Yeah.
continuing to write books. But they want to. They have a story to tell, and it's very important
Yeah.
for them to see it. How do you think they should manage, or how does one handle the situation and work on their book, if that is possible
Yeah.
at all?
I mean, I think it is possible, but the main thing to remember is that, publishing a book or any books, multiple books, does not mean you're going to start making so much money just from writing that you can quit your other jobs. Like, that is completely a myth, unless you're like, I don't know, Sarah J. Maas or like Chetan Bhagat or, George R. R. Martin, someone like that who are literally these, royalty of fiction writing. Maybe
Yeah.
they can write full time for a living, but Honestly, publishing does not pay authors, even agents and editors are not paid as much as they deserve, I think.
Yeah.
It's only the people in the suits sitting in the corporate rooms. I think they're the only ones who make money from publishing. So the main thing I would say is don't expect to become a full-time author from your first 5 or even 10 books, I think. The main thing is even if you write at a slower pace because you have other obligations from your work or from your finances, if you really want to make it as a writer, try to write at least a little bit every day or every week, maybe an hour every week or like 10 minutes every day or wherever you can get time in between, breaks or, like some people even write when they're sitting on the toilet. Okay. Like you have Google Docs on your phone
True.
now. Okay? Anything is possible.
True.
So don't, expect that writing is going to turn your fortunes around or it's going to make your life feel like you're a king or a queen or is royalty now. That's most likely not going to happen. I think it's probably the 0.0001% of authors who are successful enough to do that.
Yeah.
But if you do want to really make writing a career eventually, try to accommodate bits and pieces of it into your current lifestyle as much as you can. But at the same time, if working on a book or working on your writing right now is affecting your livelihood or your work or your finances, take a break. I don't think anything is worth your mental health or your standard of living. And if you're not able to manage finances, focus on fixing that or figuring that out. Writing will always be there. Those ideas are not going anywhere. If you're like afraid they'll go away or you'll forget them, write them down in a document and they'll always be there for you whenever you're ready for it. But please don't assume. A lot of people, they do this thing where like they assume every author is a bestseller, or they say stuff like every book is a New York Times bestseller. How is that possible? And the reason is because those books are the ones being pushed the most marketing wise. There's 100 billion other books that are not bestsellers, who are trying to find their way into the world. For example, this book. So, yeah, don't have those, crazy financial expectations from your first or even your 10th book. But if you can, invest a little bit, time into your writing every single day. And hopefully, eventually, that book will make you money in return. But I think having very low expectations when it comes to financially being an author is the main thing because publishing does not pay well. I really hate that about it. I feel like authors should be paid a lot more. I feel like editors and agents should also be paid a lot more. They should be paid better salaries, but that's just not happening as of now. I don't know how to fix it, but I think all we can do is kind of, adjust our expectations and don't quit your full-time job. That's the best advice I can give you. Don't quit it unless you're already a millionaire from writing and you'll consistently continue to be a millionaire from writing.
Yeah.
Then you can quit your job. Until then, please don't. Please don't.
Thank you for saying that out loud. I think this is the first advice. This advice similar to this, I heard it from Ruskin Bond when I was in college back in 2016, I guess. Somebody asked him that, sir, I want to be a writer or something. A very young boy from school. He said that, no, you don't. You want to write, but you don't want to be a writer. That shouldn't be your goal. You study hard, you get a job, you do it, you keep writing, and if you think that your story, people are liking your story, you give it out to them, they will read you, they will love you, and you will grow. But that is not what you want to become. And I was mind blown. Like he was always like this grandfather kind of figure. And suddenly said, no, you don't want to become an author. Nobody overnight becomes what I am. You should not look at me and decide your career. And I think more authors should say it out loud that this is not the glamour and glitz. This is not a sparkly light that we are showing. We have done it. You can do it too. But yes, you keep your, adjust your life according to it.
Yeah, like I remember, I think so. Match Me If You Can came out in India on 27th June, right? So I think 3 days after that, I think on 30th June, I was sitting at a cafe and there was some uncle, like some old uncle who I'd met him a few weeks before that and I told him, yeah, I'm a writer, my book's coming out soon. And he came up to me, he was like, oh, your book has released now, right? I'm like, yeah. It had been 3 days since the book came out, okay? And then he's like, what are the sales numbers like? And I'm like, first of all, I didn't even know the sales numbers yet because it had been 3 days. And your team won't tell you sales numbers like every hour of every day, right? Or they'll tell you in installments, like, after the next meeting, they'll tell you or something like that. I still don't know my India sales numbers, by the way, because we haven't had a meeting, anytime soon. The next meeting is happening at the end of the month. So then I'll know maybe. I was just taken aback. I was like, you're asking me my sales? The book came out 3 days back. And he's like, yeah. So what are the sales? How is it doing? Is it a bestseller? And I got so offended. I just told him, how much do you make every month? I just asked him, what's your monthly salary? And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like if you're asking me my finances, I should be able to ask you. And then he was like, no, don't, take it that way. I didn't mean to offend you. And I was like, no, I'm not offended. I'm just asking you. And he was like, it's okay, never mind. And he just like left. Then I was like, see, you
It was
know
a
what?
very
Yeah.
rosy picture of how this world is. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like if you're not going to ask some random person that you don't know how much they're making or how much they're spending in a month, don't assume that the author, that you literally don't know anything about is going to
Exactly.
tell you what's going on with their finances. Because honestly, no, it's very rare for a book to become an overnight success or an overnight bestseller. It's even rarer for the author to become an overnight millionaire or whatever. I'm definitely not there on either of those two accounts. I'm hoping it'll be a slow and steady growth. So yeah, I think, and if someone does ask you a question like this, use this response. Okay, how much are you making in a month? Just ask them that, they will back off.
This is a writing coach approved suggestion, so we will note
Yes,
it down and keep it in our mind.
absolutely. Just turn the question around on them.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I hope we are having a good time throughout this event discussion.
Yes.
And we are not boring you too much.
Oh my God, I'm having so much fun. I'm having so much fun. I feel like time is just flying.
Yeah, we feel the same. So we have finally come down to our last set of the evening, which is a sort of rapid fire, but we just didn't want to call it a rapid fire. So we're just going to call it last but not the least. Try to get
okay.
Yeah. So you have to answer it with whatever comes to the top of your head. You cannot take too much time to think. That is our rule.
All right.
Yeah. So let's start. Ready? Yeah. Okay. Your favorite author?
Emily Henry.
Comfort genre?
Romance.
One genre that you would challenge yourself to write?
Someday I want to write a murder mystery, but I think to write a murder mystery, you have to solve a murder, which I'm not capable of yet. So someday when I'm that smart enough, I really want to write a murder mystery someday.
Cool. That's a great choice. We were not thinking about that though. Like we thought it would be like something. What will she choose? Anywho, next question is flutter and a pantser.
I am a mix of the two. I'm like a plantser, I guess. Like I always write, before I start writing a book, I write this section of the book, the blurb. I write that. And then I start writing the book, but I never like outline. I don't have like a 20-page outline. I don't even have like a 10-page synopsis before I write the book. I just kind of write it as I go, but only once I have that blurb ready, the query letter or the blurb ready. Without that, I really can't write anything. So somewhere in between, I guess, plantser.
Cool. What is that one book that you can read 1,000 times over?
I would say The Hunger Games, the first one.
Cool. Guilty pleasure book?
Guilty pleasure book. So I don't think any book should be a guilty pleasure book. But if I had to like say something that I just loved reading because it was just fun and like, exciting and all of that, I would say Princess Diaries when I was a teenager. Like that book was just so much fun to read when I was a teenager. And I think even now when I go back to it and I kind of see excerpts of it, I'm like, oh, that was such a fun journey of like, those 10 books in the series that were just better and got better and better with each book.
That's fun. Who is your favorite cat from fiction?
Favorite cat from fiction. Yes. I can only think of like one cat off the top of my head, which is Buttercup, I think was the cat's name from Hunger Games again.
Oh, cool.
So I really liked that. I feel like more books should have cats. I think I need to put a cat in my next book.
Please do.
I don't know why I never put. Yeah, I haven't put any pets in any of my books yet. So I need to put a cat in the book, definitely.
We are petitioning it. Cats in the next book.
Done.
Tea. We know your favorite is tea. So Earl Grey or English breakfast?
I think there's only one correct answer, and that's Earl Grey. But my favorite tea would be the one I drank today, which is a rose black tea. It's basically got like rose petals along with black tea. So it's got a
Okay,
very nice,
yeah.
like rosy flavor to it. Yeah.
Nice. It was so nice, fun talking to you. We had a great time
Me
together.
too.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being our very first, because we know that we
Yay.
were like we had a lot to work on how to do this thing and how to approach you. It was very first book that you had launched. It was the very
Yeah.
first of our events too. So it
Yeah.
just kind of felt like a match made in heaven for us.
Absolutely.
To have
Absolutely.
this event together with you. And what can I say? It was literally magical for us.
I'm so
Uh,
glad to hear that.
yeah. Pratyusha, I'm giving it back to you. You have anything else to add to it?
I think like you made it, the word match is perfect for this. It was a good match. And exactly for Match Me If You Can and Swati. I'm just so glad and I'm so grateful that you actually, decided to do this with us. And
Absolutely.
we definitely had a lot of fun. And I think it was a lot more insightful interview. And we got to know a lot about the entire writing process. And it's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
about writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the advice and everything, it was always a very distant coming from the stage
Right.
with the panelists and the writers, but this feels more personal.
Yeah.
This gets into your head, at least in my head. Like I would
No,
listen to it, I would
absolutely.
understand it. Now okay, I will have to put it to use, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. We are really looking forward to having more interviews with you as your books come out.
For sure, yeah.
And we just like really hope that you are our, regular guest.
I would love that, honestly. And I feel like,
Yeah.
considering I have three more books coming out, it would be amazing to like
Yeah.
do one of these with each upcoming book,
Definitely.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are putting our trust in that. So we
for
have
sure.
Match Me If You Can's link attached to our bio for those who want to pick it up.
Right.
And any other advices or any other, suggestions you want to add to the
Mm,
ending, Sati?
only I think a request, which would be please buy my book if you haven't yet, and please read it. And if you like it, give a genuine review on Goodreads and Amazon. The other thing is please follow me on Instagram. I'll post my handle in the chat here, but you can also take it from Pratisha or Chenika later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, we will
Because
post it.
yeah, because I am going to be revealing everything about my next book this coming week. So I really want to, get some hype going around that book because I really hate that I can't talk about it anywhere yet because like it's honestly, if you just go on Google and you search Swati Hegde books, you will see the book. Okay, you'll see the cover also. It's already there. But I just can't say anything about it until the cover reveal, which I think is very
Like,
unfair.
I think we should do another session letting Swati speak after it is announced because she literally wants to.
I
She wants
really
to
want
speak
to for
about it.
sure.
So once it's launched, then we will have a separate session when you can just speak about that.
Oh yes, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
we
I
were
might
just
have
yeah.
seen, the book. I might have seen the title or the book.
Yeah,
And if I,
don't say it anywhere.
yeah, if I think what it is, then I think I'm gonna love it.
I'm so glad to hear
Okay.
that.
I will not push it because it's becoming a very legal thing over
Yeah,
here.
you can
Yeah.
just
Legal
go
risk.
and Google it after the call. You'll get all the info about the book. I just can't say anything for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Like we can take a few questions, I guess.
I think
Absolutely.
Sanjana wanted to say something. Sanjana, you can go
I
ahead.
think you have access to more questions, is it, Pratyush?
Do I?
I don't think I'm seeing all the messages.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like Pratisha has like on secret ballot of all questions in the room right now.
No, I'm just checking the chat box though.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Sanjana,
Yes,
you're
Yeah,
audible.
yes.
Sanjana.
Hi. Hi Swati. I just wanted to say I loved your book. I just finished reading it last night.
Oh my
And
God, thank
yeah, I'm
you.
gonna post about it on Instagram, but I just wanted to fangirl for a
Yay.
second because
Oh.
it's so rare that I come across like a desi rom-com that makes me kick and scream at 3 a.m. at night.
Oh my God, that's
So
such a huge compliment. Thank
I
you.
just wanted to say that because yeah, and thank you so much for writing this and putting it out there because again, I am somebody who's been reading romances since I was in school, and just to
Yeah.
know that there is like a an Indian person doing this for real now, I'm like, yeah, my desi romance novel person heart is just overwhelmed with bliss.
Oh,
So thank you so much,
of
genuinely.
course. Thank you for telling me all this. Like, this is literally, this whole call has like made my weekend, honestly.
For
Yeah,
us
that's
too, I think.
yeah.
We've had so much fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same here.
I mean,
I'm so glad we did this.
I stopped reading romance novels like back in school or something. But this was like, okay, need to restart. It's a whole new ball game altogether now.
Oh, yes, yes, for sure. I think romances are a lot better. Like, at least they're less problematic now than they
Yeah.
were a few
I
years
had
ago.
just one more, probably might sound sexist, and I'm really sorry if it does.
Huh.
But I think there were more men writing romance novels when we were in school.
Like in
And
India, especially, yeah.
yeah, like it
Yeah.
was fun to read. But again, like your agents might have said, it did not connect with us. We are
Yeah.
that
Like
connects with
it was,
us.
I think those romance novels, like the ones by Chetan Bhagat or Durjoy Datta were, I think they were written with a male audience in mind. And I think those books, one good thing about them was that they got like a lot of men into
Readership,
reading
yeah.
fiction. And like reading contemporary fiction that isn't just, like a fantasy novel series. That's one
I
good
think
thing
it
I think they did.
accelerated the book sale as well. A lot of people were buying books. Like before that, we remember
Yeah.
around that period, book sales has gone down quite fast.
Yeah, I
And then
agree.
it just
Yeah, I
began.
think
So
like those books were what made like adults also kind of pick up reading commercial
yeah,
fiction again just for fun because
yeah,
otherwise everyone was just reading, the adults were reading non-fiction and self-help and the kids were reading, children's books and there was
yeah,
that gap in the market. And I'm really
yeah.
glad that those authors at least kind of fixed or bridged that gap.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might not be the biggest fan of all of their work, but I think, we needed that. I think India definitely needed those books to kind of get readers, young
Yeah.
and adult readers, to get into that headspace of just reading for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up and reading romance novels, like I read a lot of romance novels, but like all of the female writers were American. So your
Yeah.
Susan Elizabeth Phillips and your
Yeah.
Jennifer
Right.
Cruz, like all of those novelists, but
Yeah.
you did not have like Indian females writing rom-coms.
Exactly.
So
It was very, like, there were a few, but they were also like not huge. They were not
yeah,
as mainstream as, Chetan Bhagat was, for
yeah.
example. Yeah.
I think the
Right.
only one that comes to my mind immediately is Astha Atre. She had this deal with Milton Boons where she was writing. I read two of her novels back in college.
Okay. And
So
there's
but
also, I think, Anuja Chauhan who wrote that
yes,
those
yes,
pricey
those
Thakur
pricey
girls. I
Thakur
think,
girls. Yes, yes,
that
Anuja
series.
Chauhan was
Yeah,
also
yeah.
another one. Yeah,
And I think Anuja Chauhan is also still. I think she's writing a lot of books. But I
yeah,
think like obviously and I don't think any female author was as huge as the male romance authors
yes.
were, which is a pity. But
Like
hopefully we'll see
I
more.
always
Yeah.
felt Preeti Singh got overshadowed because of her thing with Durjay Datta, like because they always used to either work in
Yeah,
collaboration
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
like she just could not hit the market on a independent
On her own.
level.
Yeah. That's true. And like Durjoy Datta is like huge now. Like he's just
Yeah,
going
I,
places. Yeah.
I think we should
yeah.
have like we should plan for a future podcast session with Swati and Sanjana as guests. I can see a
Yeah.
whole
Oh
amazing
yeah.
conversation brewing.
For
Yes,
sure, for
Content idea
manifestation.
sure.
noted.
It's
Uh,
out in the universe now, Sanjana. Just complete your
yes.
book.
Finish writing. Yes,
Yes,
yes, that works.
Sanjana, please,
Yes.
fast. Your
No, but
interview and then
honestly,
a
like
podcast.
I finished reading your book last night, and I was like, you know what, this gives me hope that I can do this
Oh my
because
God, thank
there's
you.
like again, it comes down to that, right? When you don't have any representation, I'm sorry for
Yeah.
using the very mainstream word here, but
It's
when
okay.
you don't have that representation, it becomes difficult to like believe that
Yeah.
I'll be able to
Yeah,
do
I
it.
agree. I agree. That
But
happens.
yeah, so thank you so much for making it happen, Swati. Like,
Of course, yeah. And I honestly can't wait to see like more, Indian origin romance authors kind of take the romance industry by storm. Because I really feel like right now, even all the really like the romance authors that I love who are Indian I think all of them are like Indian American at this point.
Hmm.
There's Indian authors, if that makes sense. Like they're very few in
Yeah.
number, I think, romance
Yeah.
authors that I really read and I really have enjoyed reading as of now, especially in the more romance and rom-com space. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping, we'll have a lot more representation
And
in
what
the next
strikes
few
me as
years.
interesting is the fact that like clearly there's a market for it in India, given the
Yeah,
kind of like given the fact that all of the American books have huge
yeah,
sales in India. So it's not like there
exactly.
isn't a market. It's just that people like us haven't finished writing our books or we aren't
Yeah,
confident enough to go ahead with it.
yeah.
So yeah.
That's very true. Yeah. I also feel like, kind of aside going into a different tangent here, but I also feel like it's getting harder and harder to get published, I think, in India, especially as a normal person. Because I feel like everywhere I look, I see like influencers and celebrities getting a lot of book deals. And I'm sure, many of them are great writers and they have ideas to tell, and that's great. I think everyone should be writing in some capacity, but I feel like a lot of regular people, if I can use the
Yeah.
term, like I feel like a lot of us get overshadowed in that because of that. Like, I remember
Yeah.
when Alia Bhatt actually is getting writing a children's book and it's coming a picture book and it's coming out of Penguin. And when they posted that announcement on the Penguin India Instagram page, like all the comments were just accusing Penguin of like, so when are you gonna look at the books that are already in your inbox?
Yeah.
Like, are we just gonna get ignored? And I feel like while I'm really happy that Alia Bhatt has written a children's book, I think it's gonna be a great book for a lot of, young moms and their kids. I also feel like it would be nice to see publishers take a chance on unknown authors as well.
Yeah.
Because I really don't see that happening much. And I feel like even a lot of the romance authors who are upcoming, uh, I haven't seen them be completely unknown people. Like either they've been people who already had a US book deal like me, or they're people who are already working at some, magazine and they knew the editor at Penguin already, or they already had like 20,000 followers. It's very frustrating. And I know for a fact that, it took me 5 years to get my US book deal, but I know it would have taken me longer to get an India book deal individually, because I just feel like it's way harder in India, I think, because they have less of a budget to, I guess, spend or invest in unknown authors. So that's a whole other issue altogether. But yeah, I just feel like it's
Yeah,
very
it's a
rough right now.
different
Yeah,
rabbit hole
Yeah.
altogether. Uh,
for sure.
yeah. So I think if there is any other question, we can take one more question before we close the session. Anyone else? No?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was such a solid discussion because
Yeah.
we have talked about all these issues so many times in our group amongst ourselves. We were
Yeah.
very keen on taking forward these questions to someone who had done it before and who already
Yeah.
has the experience. So I think that covered up all the aspects. So thank
Yeah.
you guys for joining. Thank you, Swati, for the
Of course.
opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Pratyusha, for creating this whole bridge between Swati and us that we could cross and interact.
Thank you to
Thank-
everyone because you people are present right now in this call because of which this is happening.
And the question, half of the questions were ideas from you when we discussed the problems that you face, the things we discussed. That is what developed this. Like, we need someone to talk about it. We need
Yeah.
to find someone. This push, it all happened from the community, and that was what the community question. Like, it was a kind of validation. Like, please validate what we are doing here because we want to know if it is right way to go. And seems like it is. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
would not have happened.
Yeah.
So looking forward to more such evenings with tea and great discussions.
Yes.
And happy writing, guys.